Max, will you press the recording for me when we start, please?
Yes, I'll definitely push start recording. But
Thank you.
just is going to be just two or more things. Kevin is going
Okay,
to.
thank you.
Okay, Carol, your host back again, and the stream is live.
Okay, marvelous. Thank you.
Welcome.
We're waiting for the class to begin, which should happen in about a minute, minute and a half. Well, it's up to you, but you could wait for people to come in. Yeah, when the people come in, it will be better. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Yeah.
How are you?
All is well, thank you. And where are you located?
I'm in Jacksonville, Florida.
Wow, okay. I'm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Oh, I lived in Philly for 2 years, a year ago, but
Okay.
it was too cold. Then I moved to Louisiana for a year to help my father-in-law who passed away. And then I'm in Florida now with 2 sons and 4 grandchildren.
Wow, that's a very fruitful family, very fruitful life. Great. Anyone else want to introduce themselves as we're waiting for people to come aboard?
Can you hear me? This is Jackie, and This is my first time with your class. Anyway, I'll get set up. I've been doing get set up for about 3 weeks now, maybe 4, taking different classes, and I'm enjoying it. And I live in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an aunt that used to live in Postville, Pennsylvania back in the day.
Pardon?
She's passed. I said I had an aunt that used to live in Postville, Pennsylvania back in the day. She's deceased now.
Okay. All right. Well, good. Well, welcome aboard, Jackie. We're glad that you're here and taking classes. Welcome. We welcome everyone's here.
Thank you.
I'm just going to give it a few more minutes before we start. And while we're waiting, this is a class in grant writing. Are all of you going to submit a grant or looking to submit a grant?
I just want to learn about it. Not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the same here. I'm not sure. I have some ideas, but I'm not sure a grant is the way to go or not. I'm exploring. Okay.
I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, but NASA, did you have your hand up?
Oh, I was just waving.
Oh, okay. Well, good. Where are you from?
I'm in Detroit.
Okay. And is
Yeah.
it,
Pardon me. I'm sorry, my camera's not on.
no, that's okay. That's fine. Whatever.
Yeah, you don't need to see my background.
Oh, I understand. Trust me.
But yeah, I have a small business that's been
Mhm.
like severely affected by the pandemic. So I'm looking for any grants that might help small businesses.
Okay, that sounds good. Couple of things. Is Naza how you pronounce your name, or how do you pronounce your first name?
Neza Bandele.
Okay, Neza. Okay. A lot of things have changed because of the pandemic, as you well know.
Yeah.
Certainly, we're giving you some sites that may be helpful to you.
Thank you.
As a grant seeker, seek everything possible. Don't discount anything.
Right.
Seek everything possible. And even if you have to maintain your mission, if you have to add another component, by all means, do so.
Yes.
Okay, I see Carol Sue. Hello, Carol Sue. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. How are you today?
Good. I'm fine. And Sandra's with us. Sandra, how are you?
I'm fine. After last night, I slept like a baby.
I'm so glad. That really makes me feel good. Thank you so much. We had a class last night called Evening Unwind. I'm so happy to hear that it was effective. Felice, I see you're aboard, and it's good to see you with us.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, good. And you?
Fine. I'm so glad to have this class offering.
Oh, I'm so glad too. Do you have a business or a nonprofit or something?
No, I used to volunteer for nonprofits though, but I just want to learn how to do it.
That's a good idea. Okay, so I want to welcome everybody. I didn't talk to everyone. Petra, Lily, Wanda, Bobby. Just say Carolyn. Go ahead.
Carolyn, this is Joanne.
Hi, Joanne.
Hi, I'm calling from Birmingham, Alabama.
Great.
And I'm interested. Actually, I had got my business funded in San Antonio. And just as I got the funding, my mother became ill and I had to just throw everything aside. And that, of course, was my priority. That's why I ended up back here in Birmingham. So my business was called Carlisle Cares USA. And it's housing and resources for homeless veterans and military families. That's what I'm looking to get funding for.
Okay. Probably will be some funds for that because funding usually runs in cycles depending on what's most popular with the people. And certainly veterans have become an issue, and homelessness has been magnified with the pandemic. So I'm glad that all of you, go ahead.
That's similar to what I have in mind. I'm interested in funding for tiny houses for senior citizens, like a little tiny house community for senior citizens.
I think that's a great idea because tiny houses are very cost effective. And it's really neat that you would have a community of tiny houses. So that's probably a very unique spin on tiny houses. And if you can get a builder who's willing to work with you under contracting conditions, the government, an excellent idea. Okay, well, let's get started. This is the first time I'm presenting, the grant, this particular lesson. So let's just start. Okay, this is an informational how-to class, and hopefully you'll develop some new skills and you'll learn. I'm Carol, I'm in Philadelphia, I'm your guide. I'm a retired director of a family literacy center and a college and adjunct college professor in the evening. And I also wrote grants for my family literacy program because there were things I wanted to do that I just didn't have the funding to do. So out of necessity, I became a grant writer. Get a successful grant writer, I should say. Get Set Up helps you to learn useful skills from people like you, and that's meaning seniors, so you can do wonderful things. That is, get your grants and operate profits in non-profitable businesses in this case. We learn from each other. Ideally, we can see you and cameras are on, that's ideally, but it's okay. Request a recording from after class. Email help@getsetup.io. If joining by live stream, the best way to participate is to join us and register for a class. Get Set Up is not paid to promote specific products, know that. Our agenda is a very simple one. However, it's a very full class. You're getting to know how to prepare and collect documents for grants, how to search for grants, tips on how to write grants, and then some final thoughts. Okay, let's get into the preparing aspect. And stop me at any time if you have a question. I'll stop periodically for any questions, but preparing. Have these documents available. You may not have them all now, but you'll need them sometime in the future. You need your organizational history, your mission statement that is enhanced by the funding, articles of incorporation. And again, it depends on what you're doing. An IRS determination or identification letter, all up-to-date tax forms and notices for your organization and for you. That's the up-to-date personal tax record, itemized budget, an itemized projected budget with funding. And again, you can do these things in increments. You don't have to try to do them all at one time, but you really do need to start with the mission statement so that you'll know your direction and what you want to do. Certificate of occupation, if you're in a particular building, funders want to know that you have the capacity for them to fund. If your capacity is only for 50 people, then they're not going to fund a 100 people program. So certificate of occupancy. If you're dealing with people, particularly children and seniors, you're going to need fire marshal visits with signatures that they've come and checked out that everything, your smoke detectors, et cetera. That's just a good thing to have as a good business practice, no matter what you're doing. Dates of fire drills. Do you have an emergency or shelter in place plan? Particularly now, that is so important that so many things are happening. You need to have some sort of emergency strategies or a shelter in place plan, so everybody knows where to come if there is such an emergency. All notices, postings, et cetera, in compliance with the city, state, or funders' regulations. Something that I funded, got funding for, the funder wanted us to make sure that we listed I had children, any of their allergies that had to be posted. Staff, you need to have at least one staff person who is CPR certified. Again, if you're dealing with people and crowds of people, et cetera, a first aid kit and any other funder requirements. Any questions or comments about that? Now, again, it takes a time to gather these things, but you will find some applications will require a lot of those things or a portion of those things. So you need to have them ready. And remember, grants are in cycles and there are deadlines. So you want to not be scrambling to get the documentation. The scramble should be on answering the questions in the grant application. This is important. You need to have a board of directors, including their titles and their occupations. Does your board reflect the population served? That can be pretty important, particularly with nonprofits, but in general. I mean, it sounds great that you have Richard Gere on your board from Hollywood, the actor, but is he really relevant in what you do on a day-to-day operation? And as a board member, will he be able to participate from the population your service point of view? So your board should reflect your population, maybe not all of them, but at least some of them. A list of staff with credentials and certifications. Does your staff's credentials align with your mission? Meaning, if your mission is to educate the youth to make sure they go to college, then your staff should have college educations. Maybe not all of them, but the majority of them should have it. For people that, like you're doing the tiny houses or something in commercial real estate, then you need to deal with agents that are certified and not just a friend of the family, because funders want to make sure that you're dealing with credible people. Lists of clients with participation sign-in. Now, even children, where you can have a list where their name is typed and they'll sign their names. I mean, it may be outside of the lines, but nevertheless, it verifies that you have program participants and your program is operational. And that's what you consistently want to do. You want to have verifiable documentation. You need to have clearances, FBI checks for board staff, yourself, and you may want to consider even something like this if you're dealing with outside contractors or agencies to get a clearer picture of the people with whom you're dealing. So, you know, again, each of these things need to be individualized for what you're doing. Surveys for program satisfaction and evaluation. Now that's another component. Funders want to make sure that your programs are satisfactory. And even in your planning, it's called really a needs assessment. You know, I'm sorry, I'm using your example a lot, but if you want to do housing for you know, the two people, well then collect some surveys in the area where you want to build it. Let people sign petitions if they are interested in having senior housing or veteran housing. That also can be attached to your application if they allow it. But even if someone comes out and monitors, you're showing that your service that you're asking to be funded is needed and people are interested. For one grant, I did a needs assessment, a 10-block radius, and I was able to get the students from Drexel University to come out and do a survey for me so that I had credible documentation when I approached the funder to say, you know, there is a need for this in our community. So keep in mind universities, keep in mind colleges are maybe places that can help you with what you're doing. Any statement that demonstrates impact of your organization. That's another thing. As you're dealing with people or providing services, ask them to give you a letter stating what you have done. Now, if you're dealing, let's say, with veterans or something like that, or seniors, tiny houses, perhaps you'd want to connect with an agency that could supply household goods for them and then get a letter of endorsement that, yes, they will help you, especially with veterans where there's really maybe the veteran may not have money, et cetera. Well, they'll need clothes, they'll need different items. So connect with organizations that can help with whatever you're doing. Any questions so far? Okay. So this is all under preparation, because you really need to think this out. Preparing. Below are the funders and your points of view for the story. The funder or the sponsor is interested in aligning with the vision or mission of their program, their company, their sponsor. So look carefully at whomever you're asking for money, look at their mission, read about them and and so align with what they're doing. You need to address their requirements. Most funders have specific requirements, sometimes only if you live in a certain area or only if you're servicing a certain population. So you need to be in line with that. Your costs need to be reasonable and they need to be itemized. You know, don't just pull figures out of the air. Get some credible figures, because you remember, you're dealing with savvy people. They want to know that the credible organizations, personnel, and recipients. So that credibility is a very important thing. The people with whom you're dealing, they need to know that they're credible. If you're building houses, they may already know the A builders and the C builders, because that's what they do. Let's say Habitat for Humanity or something, I don't know, but they have an idea of the people that are in the field. So you want to deal with credible people. Now, your interests, you need to have a compelling specific problem or need. Okay, in my case, people needed to be educated, and parents needed to be educated for their children. Parents are the first teachers of their children. So you needed to morph into a comprehensive family teaching or learning zone. You need to have an interesting approach. One of the things I did I did some outside things with schools to get federal monies, was I tacked on food. At the end of the month, they got food based on their attendance. And that mattered. It really opened up school and family communications as the parents came in to collect the food. So that made an interesting approach. And the feds were really interested. I mean, they thought it was a great idea. At the end of the month, people are kind of short. Your interests, you're looking for clear benefits of what you're doing. So it's not hazy, not nebulous, and you never feel as though you've accomplished. You need to know specific things that you want to accomplish. Plan for sustainability and expansion. This is another thing that funders will be looking for. What you're saying, is it sustainable? Will you be able to get additional help with it, additional support? They don't want to just fund for the moment. They're looking at a lifetime of perhaps funding you or suggesting other funders. Any comments so far or anything else that you need to say or share?
Oh,
Also-
this is fabulous. Thank you.
Okay, good, Joanne. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Also, do your taking in research. Is there another agency that has duplicate services that you taken and have, that are you're taking and proposing?
Okay, so I didn't hear the full question, Carol. So
Well,
repeat it again, please.
it's not a question. The thing is, you may have an idea of taking basically, say, for an after-school program, but if there's
Mhm,
already one right 2 blocks from you,
right.
you know that you have to take and start taking and thinking how change some element taken basically of it, or
Yes.
join them, because grant, there's no sense in going through the grant writing proposal if 2 doors down somebody's doing the same
Exactly.
thing.
Yeah,
That
you have
is-
to bench.
that is
You
so-
have to benchmark. You have to benchmark.
Yeah. Carol Sue and Sandra, your points are very legitimate. It is important that your program be unique. That's one of the things, that's why I said compelling. And you need to make sure that you're not doing the same old, same old. One of the things we introduced was a summer-long program. Most programs for kids run 8 weeks, 6 weeks. We did it for the entire summer because they lose so much information during the summer. We did it for shelter children. We, integrated them without anybody knowing. So these were unique things that we did at that time. So you need to form, as Carol Sue was suggesting, collaborations with agencies that can help that can help you, support you. We had a great deal of credibility because we connected with the FBI. We had the FBI come out and do a series every year of lectures for our children and for the parents. So part of Lily, with the tiny senior community, you can indicate that one building would be for senior resources. That's another thing that would be needed. You could add that on. You're not just giving them housing, but you're giving them support. Maybe you'll have a social worker on board. I don't know. You have to look at the dynamics and also your mission statement. Same thing with you who want to do the veterans, et cetera. Then you may want to have a component for a social worker because they need that help. Whatever is popular, you need to think about it. And like mental health for veterans, that's a biggie. You may need to incorporate a mental health professional in your planning for veterans in their housing. Support groups. And you can connect with some of the support groups that are already around for veterans and ask them to be a part of what you're doing collaboratively, so you can indicate them. But Carol Sue, that was a great point. And so it was a great point, Joanne. Anyone else want to comment before we go on?
Yeah, I have a comment. I've heard of other tiny house communities for the homeless and for veterans. I've not heard of them for seniors, but if there are any in existence, if they've had previous grant writing, is there some way we could contact them and get some
Sure.
information from them?
Well, you're going to need to do research. That's the biggest thing with grant writers. And what I would suggest is Googling tiny houses for seniors and see what you come up with.
Mm-hmm.
If you should find, and also contact builders of tiny houses, and you may not want to share your whole idea, but just get an idea if they have had anyone that, any funds given to them from the government, et cetera, or their state. Just ask it kind of generally, and that could be a jumping off point. Part of grant writing is you become a detective, you become very investigative. The other one, you can contact maybe the corporation in Philadelphia. We have the Corporation for Aging. So contact some of the aging agencies, federal level. I suggest you read, the Department of Human Services, look at their portion regarding aging or seniors, and read what they're saying, because that's the trend. And one of the ways to stay ahead and get funding is called forecasting, where you kind of forecast what's about to happen. Like now, I'm forecasting is going to be a lot of money for mental health, a lot of money for gun issues. I mean, these are the kind of programs, it's just, so the only thing I can suggest to you is that you do a lot of Googling and a lot of searching and just talking to people. You'd be surprised what you find out by talking to people. And there's another, we're going to get into the funding aspect. Have I answered your question? Did I answer your question? Good.
I have a quick suggestion. This
Sure.
is Wilcie. Just this morning on CBS News, they had a segment on tiny houses for a community of transgender women. So they talked about the how it's a nonprofit, as well as how you mentioned of making sure they have food, having the resources as well. So just Google that, CBS this morning.
Exactly.
Just on this morning.
Wilcie, thank you. Thank you very much. We are a community. We're here to support and help each other. This is how we learn and grow. So, but thank you. I did see, I listened to a part of that segment, and you're right. And you can see, I'm saying add other services. Don't be just so narrow-minded. That is your mission. You don't want to deviate from your mission, but you can add other components. And remember, you may be able to get funding for one component. Case in point, Philadelphia, I don't know if they still do it, but they used to have, what do they call it, activities funding for the summer. A small grant, I think it was like $5,000. But getting that meant I could replace my gym equipment. And if you get enough $5,000 grants, pretty soon it's $20,000, $30,000. So never turn your nose up of anything, because it's not the big money. You will have big money as you go along and as you're successful, and people know that you are credible. Trust me, people will be knocking at your door to be a part of what you're doing. Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Wilcie, for that comment. All right, let's go on then. Now, again, I'm emphasizing you must have a compelling story. And the last part I said, it must be sustainable, not a flash in the pan, but sustainable. Okay, now you're really, you know what your idea is, whatever it is, to facilitate children, to have a program for children, or a program for seniors, or housing, or veterans, whatever it is, transgender group, whatever. So this is also part of preparation. It's time to start writing your story based on these questions. What is your idea? My idea is to provide services to children, particularly since they've been out of school for a whole year. What is the project? The project is to focus on their school needs, but at off school hours. I'm just kind of going, kind of off script, just throwing things in so you can see an example. Why is it needed? Because the kids have been away from constant education for the past year. What makes my program unique? Because we're going to do project-based learning. We're not just going to do the simple, from the book, 1 and 1 is 2. We're going to base it on what the kid's interest is, and going to let them be the motivator or the driver of their education. Who will it affect? It will affect children. It will affect their families. It will affect their parents. And that's a component I would put in. I'd put in a component for the parents to learn about project-based. Whatever way I'm going to teach their children, I'd have a component for the adults to learn. I received a grant from the school district, and it was for children that, and it was interesting because these were elementary kids, like 2nd grade, and who had been truant. And, truancy is when you're a second grader is really your parents. But the component then was put in with professional parenting teachers who knew about training parents. And that was the component that I put in. Not only are we going to be looking at the truancy of the children, but let's teach parents how to be parents. That's why the kids are in the position they're in. Okay, so that's an example. It was for the kids, was truancy, but we put a parent component on there. When and where will it take place? Will your tiny houses be ready in the spring of? And will it be in Willington, North Carolina, or where will it take place? Or do you see it as a linkage of tiny houses around the United States, where you're going to be connecting with them? And you'll be the realtor or providing resources for tiny houses, in addition for seniors. Are experts involved? Well, you'll need experts. Who are they and how will they add value? You don't just want to throw in people just because of their names, where all of a sudden now, you want to have Oprah in there or something, but how will they add value? Because you have to look at their costs. How much money is needed? Be realistic. Look at your program. If you are renting the property, you have to pay utilities. How much will you be paying your staff? And don't forget, there's benefits that you need to pay your staff if they're full-time people. Part-time, you don't have to worry about the benefits as much. So how will the money be used? It's going to be used to specifically build houses. Will it be used then to hire a realtor to help market the houses? Whatever it is, you need to be specific and get some sensible numbers, because remember, you're applying to people who are experts in the field. They're not just, Joe Schmo. These are people, they're grant. I did some grant review. You're expert in your field. And as you're reading, you can tell those that have a sound plan and who don't have a sound plan. So, and you're thinking, this is valuable money and you want to give it to people that are doing valuable programs. This is the most important part. What are the measurable outcomes? How will you evaluate the project? I want to build teeny houses for seniors. The measurable outcome that 60% of the seniors in Wauwatosa, Florida are in inadequate housing, and we will be able to provide 20% of those people with affordable housing. Remember, funders like to hear numbers and percentages. You need to have measurable outcomes. Our program will increase the reading capacity of children 10% or one grade level. That's what, for one grant, I asked for all of the students that were failing, D and below. I didn't want any student that was doing well. I wanted students that were not doing. I'm going to just stop and share. I wanted students that were failing. First of all, there was a need. Most programs don't want failing students. So I knew we would be unique because we said, we're taking on all the failures. And so we were funded for several schools to provide after school services at the schools, different locations in Philadelphia. All of the failing students. But I was able to say to them, and this was realistically, that we would increase their grade average by 10%. Well, we also coupled it with the food so that the kids, one of the issues with children, they weren't attending after school, but when they knew they could bring groceries home to their families, it made them want to attend. And just the attendance made them learn something. And we cared. I'm going to tell you something else. That's something that you need to communicate to people, that you care and that you're willing to fight for them to get whatever it is you feel they need. You become an advocate and you become an expert in your area. So that's why contact people, do research so that you know your stuff. When you approach someone, 15% population needs this service. And I want to supply it and I need you to help me supply it, funder. And then you could take a bow of how great you are. That's the approach. You don't have to say those words to them, but that's the approach. Okay, any comments or anything? All righty, let's.
I have one thing.
Yes,
Does-
Carol Sue,
This has
yes.
to taken and do with insurance. That's insurance on what you're taking, basically doing, liability, etc. The thing is, get several taken basically estimates. Quite taken often, we take an undershoot how much insurance really is needed, or we
Mhm.
think that we don't need it at all. So
No.
don't forget that part of the equation.
Yes. Carol Sue, that is an excellent comment and part of the equation. What I would suggest for people who are new, and if you can, umbrella under somebody else. Meaning if I was doing children, I would try to get office space or umbrella under boys and girls clubs. I'm just using that for an example, because they have the insurance, they have the occupancy, they have all those things. So on their off nights or whatever, let us be part of it. And they would pretty much cover the insurance. And what we're doing is increasing their populations. But Carol Sue, that is an excellent point. And I will make sure next time I do this, I will mention insurance, because that is very, very expensive.
Because we're in a Sue crazy society also.
I know that's right. Sounds like you've had some experience, Carol Sue.
Yeah, not by choice, because of what my profession used to take and basically be. So I mean, I still taking basic am license, but it's only from experience. And the other thing too is you don't have to give up your whole taking idea for what your project taking is. But the thing is network
Yes, yes.
Till
Exactly.
you want to puke. Network.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you never take, another thing too is you never know who you're going to take and basically meet in passing, taking basically by. So
Exactly.
I mean, and they'll remember you and you'll remember them, hopefully.
Yes.
And the thing is collaboration is taken basically, it takes less work off of, sharing the work of 2 or 3 people is sometimes better than trying to do it all yourself.
Exactly. May I ask what your profession was, if you care to share it?
I have a degree in human services, and I have I'm LPN. I've been LPN since the 80s.
Okay, that's great. Super. One of my human services, connecting people with resources, and you're absolutely, it's true. Collaborate. Funders are not going to reinvent the wheel, and the people with whom you collaborate have the expertise that you don't have. You cannot do it yourself. Carol Sue, you're right. You want experts to do it. You don't want to, you can be the administrator, but get good people around you. This is another point that when Carol Sue was going to bring a little later on. Is everybody familiar with the elevator ride? Introducing yourself during an elevator ride? Okay, most people are. Let me just tell you.
I am.
I'm familiar with the elevator
Okay.
pitch. Yeah.
A couple of people are shaking their head no. What that means is that you may have an opportunity to meet Bill Gates on an elevator. You may have an opportunity to run into your congressman on an elevator at the Municipal Services Building without realizing it. So within at least 3 minutes or less, I would say less, be able to tell them what your program is about. Be able to introduce yourself assertively, eye to eye, even with the mask, and be able to say something, get always a sentence that captures people, such as, I don't know, too many people in our state are homeless. I have a solution. Before you get off the elevator, may I share it with you? And then go and tell them in a few sentences what you want to do, how you want to do it, and always have a clean business card with you, not where you're fishing in your pocketbook or in your pocket, but then be able to hand them a business card. So from the first floor to the 3rd floor, you should be able to present your project, your program, who you are, and how you will enhance their community. If you run into, we'll go into that a little later on. Any other comments or questions? And Carol Sue, you've been very helpful. Thank you. Okay, then let's go on. So we talked about looking and how to evaluate your project. I have a solution. So 5% of the veterans who are milling around the city will have a place to be. and particularly if it's a congressman or a city official, pinpoint their district. And, it gives them an opportunity to take a bow. So you're preparing these things. You're actually sketching it out exactly what you want to do, how much it's going to cost, who you will involve. And as Carol Sue said, collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. Grant writers are storytellers. With urgency and determination, they tell stories of people's needs along with solution to funders who can meet those needs. So be prepared to tell a story with urgency and determination. You have to be the first believer in what you're putting forth. And you have to decide that you're not going to turn away from this. This needs to be done. So you can't be shy. Grant writers are not shy folk. Okay, so now you've got your story, you have an idea. Now here's the test. Would your story pass the Judge Judy test? How many people have seen Judge Judy on television? Well, if you haven't, she's a pretty tough judge. And she will tell people in a minute, that's garbage. That's poppycock. That's just garbage. Doesn't make sense. She's very short, patient, and she will just call it the way she sees it. Because she's been around for a lot of years. With your story, listen to yourself as if you were telling Judge Judy or any other judge your compelling story along with your funding requests. What would she say? I want to provide after-school services for 80 kids, and my budget is $100,000 because I want to bring in all the different psychiatrists and blah. Now, what would she say about that? Is that a compelling story? Is your story compelling and the solution unique? I want to provide after-school funding for 80 homeless children. And I want to hire a social worker that can help connect them with the services that they need and collaborate with their current social worker at the homeless shelter. So they're getting the service from both ends. That's just off the top of my head, but I think you see the point of what I'm saying. Having a credible story that even if you listen to it, does it make sense? Okay. Any comments before we go on? Righty. And let's go on.
I do. The other thing that popped into my head was this. If you're taking like and having, say, 80 taking students, as you say, the thing is the ratio of staff to
That's
clients,
true.
if you will, you don't want to take and basically have one person, tutoring for 80 students. So the thing is it taking, is it doable? Is it feasible? Yes. Also, the other thing too is this. Many taking in grants, okay? They think they want you to take and like chip in, not ask for the whole amount that you need. You always ask for more, but the thing is they always take and ask, well, what other fundraising activities are you going to do to promote
exactly
this? So that that's been my experience.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, one of the things that will happen when you get the application, and what Carol Sue said, these things will be noted on your application. They're going to tell you, or your state has regulations as to the ratio. Our ratio, I forgot what it was, but I always went higher. If we were supposed to have 3 staff people, and it also matters the level of your staff people. I'm just dealing with children. You can't have all volunteers. So again, oftentimes your state will have regulations as to what the ratio can be. Your state will require that you have certain insurances and some of the things that I listed, and it will be listed in your application, exactly what you need and what they're expecting as far as ratios are concerned, and oftentimes regarding insurance or occupancy requirements. But your state also has the regulations regarding people and what is acceptable and what's not. Any other comments? Thank you so much, Carol Sue. Okay, let's go on. So now we've decided if your story passes the Judge Judy test, and hopefully it does. Right now, I want you to beware of scammers because we're getting now into looking for the actual funding. Any organization that asks for money or personal information is a scam. There's only one group that I know, and it's a subscription fee, and they are legitimate, and I'll note them. But if they're asking you for personal information, if you're on the phone, hang up. If you're getting emails, erase them. Don't even open them. Those are scammers. Funders want to give you the money, not take money from you. Now let's start our search. With my story in my hand, it's time to search for funding. Let's look first at miscellaneous funding. Go to the philanthropic section of your main library. There are volumes of major corporation, family legacies, and quirky funding resources there. There are volumes of it. So contact your librarian, and when you can set up, I don't know what's happening now with COVID, but and it's amazing. Some of the funding sources are really quirky. Like if your family lived on Taney Street in 1928, then you may be able to get $10,000 for schooling or something. So the library is the first place, I think, to start, because almost everything is contained there. If you're like in Philadelphia, we're fortunate we have a really good main library. Connect via phone or online to local and national benevolent and support organizations, such as the Businessmen's Association, Rotary groups, medical conditions, like maybe there's a cancer society or cancer support group, or whatever it is, different heart foundation, I don't know, whatever medical condition is in alliance with what you want to do. It depends on your focus. Contact online universities or colleges. Often they receive federal funding to help, to teach, and to give funding to community organizations, usually nonprofits, but a lot of things have changed. So like Temple University had that, and I know some people that took full advantage of that. And that's for the smaller organizations, but they're there to help, and they have federal funds to pour funds into nonprofits in the area. Now here's something you can do. Google your city grants or funding, or your keyword for your grant, such as the example, I'm in Philadelphia, so I would just Google Philadelphia grants or funding. Or I would Google homeless funding or grants. And that will give me, if I do it that way, it's a broader base. But just Googling, remember you are searching all possibilities. So you must become an investigator. Okay, so that's kind of a general miscellaneous. Now let's look at local funding. Contact your political representative. Here in Philadelphia, it'll be my council person who's in the district that I want to provide service. I would introduce myself and my organization, and I would ask he or she if they know any grants or funding. Most times they do, because they know pretty much what the government wants to do, particularly the city. If there's any funding for your project, usually they can make suggestions for funding if he or she or her office does not have the funding. A lot of politicians have kind of what they call walking around or slush funds, and they may be instrumental. Keep in mind, offer to do a pilot program. Ask, well, what is needed in our district? And then if they may list some things or say some things, offer to do a pilot program. Ask he or she has a pilot program in mind for the area. Ask for a letter from the office that verifies your organization is providing service to the community in the area. So that's what they're there for. Ask for a letter indicating, and that gives you, again, verification that you are providing a service. Now let's expand it a little bit more to state funding. These entities may be state or federally funded with various components. Again, Google your city small business association. For people that want to do building, I guess your city and builders, or I don't know, you'll have to do combinations. But these are definite places. There's the Small Business Association, Business Development Center, Economic Development Authority, Small Business Development Center, community funding or community grants, and also keywords that are in whatever it is you want to do. So you would just Google Philadelphia community funding or community grants and see what comes up. You'd be surprised what comes up. I did it a couple times just to make sure with different entities. Now, some of them are looking for profit and some of them are looking for nonprofit organizations. Any comment?
Yes, also.
Yeah, I'm
Okay, there's two
had
people. Go ahead.
signed up with grant.gov, and this is like a whole list of subjects and grants. So I guess I got to do a search about which one I want. It's usually just business grants for my business, but I was thinking about one grant, like the name of the service is called Borderline. And that, stands for like, people coming over in a border, to see if I could search for a grant on how, like a group of us could come out to their country and see if there's some way we could set up shop to help them out instead of them coming out to the border and, trying to get into the country. Cause this country has like enough problems, but I thought it would be good to have like an interest group to come out their countries and set up shop and see where they need help at. It could be anything like getting housing, food, shelter, or whatever to help the country out, temporarily until they could, find their way and help themselves or something like that. Any type of social thing.
Yeah,
the people
I think
might
that's an
need.
excellent idea. I think that's an excellent idea. And you may want to look at, as you said, grants.gov to see if there's any grants. But there are a number of philanthropic organizations that those kinds of things. I can't think of any right offhand, but they actually recruit volunteers to help. So you could Google that as far as foreign volunteers or something along those lines. Or specific want to do, and you'll find there are a number of them that you can. Peace Corps is one off the top of my head.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah,
Peace Corps is one. There's the Ship Hope, where they go into different countries and they're really providing medical support. I think it's called Vista. I'm not sure, but again, start out with like Operation Hope. That's another one. So. There are a number, you just have to kind of Google and search around because new things are popping up. But I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, because, we're all, God's children and we all need to see what ways we can help each other out,
Exactly. Yeah. I want to go on because our time is getting short. So.
Okay, sorry.
No, but by no means. Thank you. Appreciate your comment.
Okay, thanks.
So we did this, we're looking now, we expanded to the state, we did local, state. So let's look at federal and national funding. Grants.gov, which I think we made, and this is a list of government grants. And what I would suggest here, because it's lots of them, bukus, lots of them. I did look and I did see quite a few, but I'm sure with the pandemic, a lot of things have changed. But what you have to do, I think, is go to the federal department that would be a part of your grant. Meaning if I was looking at housing or something like that, I would probably go to the Department of Human Services and kind of read what they're saying, what the department is looking for, or children, I would go to the Department of Education and kind of see where they're moving. And that's that forecasting. Council of Foundations, it lists all kinds of foundations. Usually it's for nonprofits, but I don't know what they're doing now. There used to be something called the foundationcenter.org, and that was a very valuable resource, and also GuideStar, but they've combined now and they've made candid.org. It's a listing of foundation, and family legacy grants, along with other support services. There is a subscription fee for this one. I don't know if you would consider it costly, but there is a fee, but it's well worth it for the information that they have. Corporation Foundation lists corporation and funding. So these are all researchers, are all people that give money or can point you in the direction of giving money. Okay, note, while keeping your mission intact, be flexible. If there is funding for prison and family reunification, check to see if your clients can participate in this funding. Consider it as an add-on to your program. In other words, keeping your mission intact, be willing to add on, be flexible, accept funds for one part of your program. If the grant is being offered for summer physical activities, I mentioned, consider applying for it. It would help cover or replace your used gym equipment. realize realize a few small grants can equal a significant amount of money for your program. Be creative and think possibilities. Okay, we're at a point now where you found the grant that you want to apply to. You've contacted the funder and asked and received, and that's what's going to happen when you find the grant. There's always a person listed or a way for you to get the application. And it's called a RFP or a RFA, and that means proposal or application, a request. Carefully, carefully, carefully read the instructions and application. Applications are rejected because instructions weren't followed. And if they want you to attach some of the things that we talked about earlier, you need to make sure you have them. Applications that are late are rejected without consideration. If you have any questions, contact the person listed on the proposal. You do not have to answer all the questions alone. Ask your board, your staff, and clients via a client survey, and you can use that later on, that survey, to substantiate what you're saying, to answer some of your questions, because it can be daunting to have a 35-page application with intricate questions. Boy, I'm having a hard time here. Intricate, you know what I'm saying. With all information funneled to you, that is, you've asked the board to help, or your staff or your clients to help via surveys. With all the information funneled to you, write the grant, edit it, and have someone proofread it. That's another thing. Grants that are poorly written are going to score rather low, because if you can't write what you're telling me about, I don't know how you can implement it. When satisfied, submit your proposal. And I say to you, best wishes in getting your grant. Any questions that I haven't answered or that I could help with? All of you have given excellent comments, and I do appreciate it. And I'll make sure that when I do this again, like I said, this is my first time doing this particular course, I will certainly incorporate some of the things that you have said. But remember, go ahead. Yes, Wellesley.
I'm sorry.
No,
Yes, I have a nonprofit business, and I provided activities or a certain type of activities to senior centers. With the pandemic, of course, they shut down those having access. The reason I chose the facility, they already had computers, they already had the internet, they had a meeting place, and it was a gathering place for seniors already. I requested payment from them, from the organization, not from the participants. And I'm wondering, I'm just a one mom pop operation, just me. Am I looking for a grant, or should I still look for opportunities that those type of organizations pay me directly? Or should I look for grants to just say, I have a service I'm going to provide for you because I already have funding from a grant?
Okay, well, I would suggest you do both. Never limit yourself, do both. If you're looking for a grant, you're going to be using that organization as your place of meeting, and I'm assuming they'll have the insurance and the occupancy and all the things that you need.
Well, that was then, that's not now, you know.
But coming in with money will make a difference to that organization, where you're not taking from them, you're enhancing what they're doing.
Yes, and providing them, their members, with an activity.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I would certainly look for money for that. You'll have to bring them aboard, but it's your organization. If your organizations are Seniors Incorporated, the name on the application will be Seniors Incorporated, and you're collaborating with them.
Yes.
And the other thing is then look, the other option you mentioned was like for a place that would pay you to do this. Well, consider that too. I would go and read the Department of Aging, some of the things that they're looking for, and just kind of get into lockstep with them. Like computer training for seniors is a biggie, because we're so isolated. So, you know, it's a lot of research, it's a lot of reading. If you have, like you said, you're just doing this by yourself, I would suggest that you outline it exactly what you want to do, and then proceed to find funders that will answer what you want to do.
Well, I was successful in doing that for about a year and a couple of months before the pandemic hit.
Mhm.
But like I said, I'm thinking somehow I'm going to have to reimagine how I'm going to provide those services now. I'd like to still go in to the facility. However, I don't think they've even opened up their activities room for that type of gathering as
Well,
of yet.
a couple of things. One, you have a track record.
Yes,
That's
I do.
always good. You have a track record. That's
I kept
important.
my attendance. I kept all
That's
of
great.
that.
You have
and
a
my
track record.
testimonies.
Good. That's excellent. That's the things we need to do. Be verifiable. What I would suggest is try to find funding, because the center may need funding even to open. That may be some of the issues. So try to find funding and get in touch with the person who heads the center. You may know them, and then just talk about, you don't have to tell them all the details until you're ready, but you have found funding, potential funding, and would they be able to open up the center 1 day a week, 2 days, whatever you plan, if you're able to provide the funding for this.
Okay.
And
this
have your
is
track
Joanne.
record. And when you approach them as I have a track record with this.
Yes.
And this will make your organization, I mean, in a nicer way, I'm saying it straight out of my time, but this is going to make your organization shine.
And I have
So,
a suggestion.
yes, Joanne, go ahead.
For her too. There are, you know, I don't know if as far as transportation is concerned, but for nonprofits, they can have free rental space.
Sure.
So if she can find someone in, you know, the community, and people have been very, very just wonderful in providing. So if she can ask around for a free rental space, if she has a specific project like quilt making or something,
sure,
that particular day, you know, outside of the senior center, unless she just wants to target someone else's space.
Exactly.
But that's just an extension for, you know, you can meet X, they'll give you a time slot. You will meet here for free. They may provide refreshments. So
that's excellent. That is excellent, Joanne. And what she said, so then you may want to get in contact too with the Quilt Makers of America and see where they stand, or the Folklore Quilt Makers of America. So I've got to go on here because our time is getting close, and you may have other classes to attend. And so, you know, carefully read it. I mean, and fill out everything. I told you don't have to, all information funneled to you, then we just best wishes in getting the award. Just make sure that you dot your I's and cross your T's. I want to thank you for your patience with me, and I want to thank you for allowing me to share grant writing, and Get Set Up also thanks you. You can share this experience with hashtag Get Set Up, at Get Set Up, and also to Liz at Get Set Up. Liz is a real person. Related classes is goal visualization, getting goals and achieving them. My next class is really this afternoon at 1:30. It's 1:30 Eastern Standard Time, my time, and that's creative writing. Other classes is evening unwind, stories of kindness, and now grant writing. When we close out, you'll be receiving class notes, and we ask please that you read the notes, and also, in most of you are veterans, the feedback, please give us feedback so that we can improve what we do. And we appreciate hearing from you, just as in the class. I appreciated hearing from each one of you. So please return that. The Get Set Up community, spread the word about learning with Get Set Up. Come host an interest group. If you have something that you're really interested in, contact them regarding hosting a group. They want to know about it. Suggest a group you would like to see on Get Set Up. We partner with assisted care, senior living, government and community organizations. Request session recording, plus shared ideas for new classes at help Get Set Up IO. Please stay in the class if you need assistance and booking your next class. So I don't know, does anybody need assistance as far as navigating the website, or you're, like I said, you're veterans, so.
Carol, I have a question, please.
Sure.
This is Sue. This was wonderful
Okay, good, Sue.
information. It was a lot of information, actually.
Yes.
So I will be requesting the video. It was wonderful.
Mhm, mhm.
Could you please go back to your preparation slides? I think you had 4. And we sort of ran through those, and the comments from everybody were great. My daughter and I just received our 501(c)(3) status.
Great.
So I am.
That's hard.
Thank you. It was a process for sure.
Mhm.
I am overwhelmed,
Mhm.
totally overwhelmed. So this was very helpful in you laying out, but I just wanted to, when you send out the notes, will you be sending out those preparation slides?
I don't think I could put it all in the notes. A couple of things. The first time doing this class, it should run again. Request it, we'll run it again. I normally change up, people that know me, I change my classes to make it more interesting. But this class, I'm going to keep the same way for a couple of times.
Okay.
Because I think the information doesn't, it's solid information. So in answer to your question, I can't put it all in the notes.
Okay. So
When
would
it
you
runs
also,
again,
Carol, I
come
think
back.
it's on the 20th again. They have it
Pardon?
listed, for the 20th.
Oh,
Again,
great.
this class.
Thank you for telling.
Thank
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we will do it the same way, and I'll be adding some of the comments.
Okay.
Happening now, we're a little bit past our time.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I really
That's okay.
go past, I would go back. But I really can't, because I know people have other things to do.
Okay.
And try to keep our time frame. I'm already like a minute or two over.
Okay.
Okay. So I hope you don't mind. Come back to the class, request a video. We'll see. Did you have a comment? I saw your.
I was just waving by.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you all so
Bye,
much. I've had
everyone.
fun with you. Thank you.
Thank you.